Okay, so welcome back from lunch, everybody, to the second Pecha Kucha session. As you know, this is going to be a very exciting session. No one fall asleep, okay? So I would like to invite all the case presenters up here or there, if you like, so that you are ready to jump when your turn is. So that is Sajda Khatoon, Renu Varghese, David Wanjeri, Yeong Ma, and Ibrahim. Could you please come up here? Thank you. Woohoo! Yeah, get ready. Thank you, guys. All right, so as a reminder, this is the Pecha Kucha session, which means the slides move autonomously. They have their own minds. It's 15 slides, 20 seconds per slide. So each presenter has only 5 minutes. And when you're ready, and you come up here, introduce yourself, say start. Okay? Again, as before, there will not be any questions, but please ask the presenters later. And after the Pecha Kucha session, there will be a voting for the best Pecha Kucha talk. And that voting will close at 3:30. So please vote as soon as the last presenter finishes. Okay, so I would like to invite the first presenter, Sajda Khatoon, to give a talk, please. Applause.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So I am Sajda Khatoon from India, and let's start. So I'll be talking on examining the ethical implications of the burden of heatwave related illnesses in indigenous communities in Puruliya district in West Bengal, which is eastern part of India. And basically this begins from the the recent events of heat wave days that we've seen in the country from the past 1969 to 2019. The data says West Bengal particularly has seen 51 to 200 heat wave days annually, and the recent year to 2024, the newspaper reports have reported many deaths due to heat wave grips. And the present study had the aim of understanding the impact of heat waves on indigenous communities. And the ethical issues, firstly, is justice and fairness in research agenda, where indigenous voices are missing in shaping the research questions. Their specific needs and environmental realities of the tribal people need to be taken into account for aligning the programs to their traditional knowledge systems. So these will involve overcoming communication barrier, equitable stakeholder inclusion, and traditional coping mechanisms. And for doing that, we need to build a trust in the community, because tribal communities are very close communities, and as an outsider, you cannot penetrate into the society to engage with them in any kind of communication. And they have uniqueness of each indigenous communities there, and for that, we involve trained local tribal facilitators to do the work. And next is equitable stakeholder inclusion, wherein we need to involve the people in all research phases from planning to dissemination. And for that, our organization month was awarded with the Grassroots Science Advance Promotion Awards from INSA Asia. And for that, tribal populations were asked to deal with, talk to us on climate change aspects and about livestock, agriculture, health. This is what impacts them and is a matter of concern for them. Data availability is another problem, and the right you see, that's the Nityananda Janvani radio station that is run by our institute by tribal women. And the woman on the right you see, she is the first woman tribal radio jockey in the country from our radio station. So that is a way of putting the voices of the community in their language through their customs. Research governance requires a multifaceted approach, and long-term research commitments are required for tangible benefits. So A localized ethical review process ensures indigenous voices. The picture you see is from a tribal village assembly, which in the tribal Santhal language is called Kulhi Dhurup, which means 5 elders from the community sit together and discuss the issues of the community. So if these people are also brought into the system of research, it helps them voice the opinion, and unique vulnerabilities and dynamic contexts are brought up here. So for solving that, ensuring long-term benefits, communicating findings, and co-creating intervention strategies, this prevents extractive research procedures and fosters resilience against climate change-related health impacts. And then it ensures community participation. And to conclude with, the severe impact of heat wave-related illnesses was observed in the indigenous communities, and it voices the need for community engagement and integration of indigenous knowledge into scientific research. So we recommend firstly to establish a local climate health knowledge hub, which facilitates the integration of local and scientific knowledge systems and provide for capacity building for the people, and basically bring a linkage between the researchers, the policymakers, and the communities. And second is the community-based monitoring systems, where local resources and technologies to track climate variables and health outcomes are tracked in real time, which empowers the communities by making them active participants in monitoring and responding to health risks, and ensuring timely interventions and adaptations based on accurate localized data and context. So third is the social return on investment evaluation, which is recommended to emphasize the advantages of the projects to the policymakers and aid informed choices to adopt for future investments, and really make them see the real impact of the work that has been done or that will be done. So it makes sense to the policymakers to have an understanding what really matters. So I'd like to thank my colleagues for preparing this case study, and Julian and Adrian for revising this and making it presentable here. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sajda. And next, Renu Varghese, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My study is on the study of socioeconomic disparity on the effect of heat on health in persons working in the same organization. I am Dr. Renu Varghese from Pondicherry Institute of Medical Sciences, Pondicherry, a union territory in India. Where is Pondicherry? Pondicherry is in the south of India, along the coast of Bay of Bengal, 11 degrees to the north of the equator and 12 degrees to the south of the Tropic of Cancer. It's hot during the months of April, May, and June. My brief description of my case study. This study is on the health issues faced by the medical college and the hospital staff who work in different settings during the peak of summer. The work environment is different for distinct categories of staff, though they work in the same organization. The objectives of my study are to study the health-related issues by the hospital staff during the peak of summer. Period of studies between April, May, and June of 2025. Study participants belong to 3 groups: those who work in the AC environment, those who work in non-AC indoor, and those who work outdoors. The methodology: 3 distinct groups. Informed consent will be got, socioeconomic background will be studied, physical health issues related to heat, behavioral issues related to heat, and pre-existing health conditions which are worsened by heat will be studied amongst these 3 distinct groups. This is the housing of some of the study participants. They are in thatched roofs with very little ventilation, or they are in small concrete bungalows with the tsunami quarters, which have very little ventilation and are closely packed with no trees. Now the next comes the extent of our campus. Our campus sprawls over 35 acres with lots of roads and gardens which have to be maintained by these working outdoors and in the community, which is far off, where they go house to house to visit the rural community. Now, what are the ethical issues? The obligation of the researcher to the research participant, the unintended consequences of research, and the issues related to research governance. So, are the researcher, this is the obligation of the researchers to inform the participants about the risks involved, and are they educated about the lifestyle modification? Are they willing to make the lifestyle modification? Are the leaders informed? Can they solve their problems by changing work timings or giving them more frequent breaks? The unintended consequences. The ethos of the workplace is lost. Study participants are aware that their work environment is not equitable. The study participants want action. Administrators may not be able to give what is feasible. Research governance. Does the Research and Ethics Committee verify on whether the data and collected bring out the benefits and risk faced by each of the distinct groups of employees? Does the Research and Ethics Committee ensure that follow-up action is taken by the researcher based on the findings of the research? Challenges likely to be faced. We know that the ethos of the workplace is affected. Study participants are aware that their working environment is not equitable. They want action, and administrators will not be able to do. Is the research feasible? Should it be permitted? Yes, it should be permitted because it brings out the harmful effect of heat. Study participants know the risks. They are educated. They can be informed that the problems, not all problems are solved. Administrators can be informed, and what is feasible can be done. So some effects, final outcome, at least to some extent, the heat, harmful effects of heat are mitigated. Conclusions, I have two, according to principles of justice and fairness. They are informed to all the study participants, they are discussed with the leaders, and it can help. The final recommendation is to be followed up by the researchers and made known to all. Thank you, and I have to thank Adrian and Julian for working with me. I mean, their patience I have to admire. Thank you very much. Thank you, GFBR, for permitting to present in this August gathering. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Renu. Next we have David Wanjeri.
I'm David Wanjeri from Kenya, and I'm also one of the philosophers. And I'm not going to philosophize, I'm just going to reflect. It's a short reflection about how colonial establishment in East Africa should be part and parcel of the whole discussion about climate change and health. I'm talking about, I'm referring to the British colonial activities in East Africa. So when the British came to East Africa, they came along with settler farmers, and they were settled in the best lands in Kenya, called the White Highlands. And this one meant that the local farmers were pushed to the periphery, what they call African reserves. And this one was done through a number of colonial land policies, as listed there, which resulted in Africans being confined to unproductive land, which was overcrowded. And this one includes the urban settlements, which have remained so to date. If you go to Nairobi, you'll see a lot of slums. One of them is there, called Mathare. Now, the aim of this argument is to show that the establishment of settled farmers led to the native land alienation, and this one has got long-term climate effect, which affects the people living in these settler economies. Now, all these were brought by settler activities in Kenya, including mechanized agriculture, including introduction of foreign seeds to Africa, and establishment of factories and locomotives and all that. And this one still, I mean, it became the foundation of what we can term as a part of climate change. Now, the main argument here is that if you want to talk about colonial, climate justice, it has to be integrationist. It doesn't have to be separatist. This means that We link the colonial land injustice to the native marginalization, which leads to poverty and high disease burden. And these are some of the things that should dominate discussion about climate justice, which is all about human justice. It's about human rights, which should include all aspects, including social, political, economic, and also environmental. This is not what happens mostly in some of these discussions. Most of the discussions that dominate all this forum on climate change, they're about the obvious things: carbon credit. It's about anthropomorphic, climate change, and most of the themes that are there are not so much about what happens to this kind of places. Now, the two major theories that I want to emphasize here is the distributive justice and reparative justice for colonial settler environments, which is about fair sharing and equitable distribution of burdens of climate change and also compensation. And COP28, which was held in UAE, addressed some of these things: monetary compensation, land and natural resource allocation, and debt cancellation. And this debate still continue, but it should emphasize also what I'm talking about here. It should emphasize how these settler communities should be included, especially in the funding for research in this kind of settings, because it's this kind of activities that are going to bring more meaning to this kind of setting. Next. Now, so the ripple effect of colonialism, which includes land alienation and marginalization, and also climate change, for climate change, has led to what we call global structural inequities, which affect health and also capacity to address climate change in this kind of settings. And therefore, this is what should dominate when we talk about climate change discourses: knowledge production and research. What should be prioritized are these two things: distributive and reparative justice. And therefore, if there should be any meaningful research about climate change and health, it should underline these two aspects. And therefore, as a recommendation, we are saying that the issues of distributive justice and reparative justice should be mandatory agenda in any kind of research application in this kind of settings. And it should also ensure that the voices from these settings are also heard. I want to thank Julian and Adrian for insisting that I should use more photos than words. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, philosopher. So next we have Yeong Ma, please. State if you're a philosopher.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Yeong Ma. I'm from China. I have a medicine background and a PhD on bioethics. I wanted to talk about the ethics of microbiome science, climate change, and health. We know, next please. Microbiome includes virus, bacteria, archaea, and which can be found in all areas of the planet, including industrial, urban, atmospheric, suburban phase, and aquatic ecosystem. While they are very small, but microbiome make a significant contribution to the planet health, planet climate because of their numbers. Microbiome. But the conversation between the relationship between climate change and the microorganism is still very few. We must appreciate the links between human, animal, environment, and microbiome health as an important part of confronting this significant climate change threat. And this is picture to shows the microbiome is everywhere. Although human activities such as burning fossil fuels and agriculture release greenhouse gases at a faster pace than microbiome consumption, resulting in imbalances in the carbon cycle, which affect the microbiome response and impact climate change. we need to, therefore, I think we need to construct a framework for microbiome ethics, which not only transcend to some scientific disciplines, but also goes beyond the existing applied ethics fields, such as research ethics, public health, and animal ethics. Climate change and microbes actually impact each other. While human activities have been a major driver of climate change, microbes are also a major factor. As we can see, the antibiotic resistance goes up along with the global warming. But microbes can also be solutions to climate change. For example, if we increase the soil microbiome, which can better keep the water, so which can be a drought mitigation strategy. Next, please. And the microbes, health, and the environment, there's an inequitable microbiome exposure in urban housing. Low-income minority and immigrant populations disproportionately live in housing with physical problems that can lead to mold exposure from water damage, deteriorate, and exposure to vectors of disease because of building deterioration. So it is very important for the scientific community to recognize microbes as invaluable partners in the fight against the climate change. Microbiome research is relevant and important for so many topics, which many of them they are the top priority for the UN Sustainable Development Goals. This is a comprehensive framework of microbiome ethics. We can see it's related to environmental ethics, public health ethics, animal ethics, and research ethics. It's a framework using the four principle framework, and questions can be raised that what moral discounting is defensible in considering possible trade-off between human and non-human health when assessing the social value of microbiome. And the colleagues, the other scholars has also proposed the microbiome ethics and listed the 11 guiding principles for microbiome research based on ethical analysis, and he also proposed our human gut microbiome as a global common heritage. I think the key concept in microbiome ethics is an ethics of interconnection and interdependence, because there's an increasing volume of evidence between climate change and health, including the health of human, animal, and environment, so which heighten the importance of timing our moral deliberations and highlights generational justice. Issues in microbiome, including how we ensure that future potentially disruptive microbiome knowledge-based and treatment in the health and food system and beyond are being developed globally for the benefit of all, supporting environmental, dietary, and ethnic diversity. And sorry, it's too quick. And I come out to my conclusion. We raise important questions relevant to the intersection of microbiome ethics, climate change, and human health and innovations. It's urgent to develop a new framework for microbiome ethics, which acknowledge the interconnectedness and interdependence between domains of climate change, health of human and the environment. And I think it's very important to incorporate microbiome science into climate change initiative will help provide a better understanding of and ability to mitigate climate change future impacts. And our policies should be informed by microbiome ethics and enacted in ways that facilitate public-private partnership between diverse scientists and commercial entities, regulatory bodies, and other stakeholders. It's also very important to highlight and prioritize addressing inequalities in microbiome threats of vulnerable populations at a greater risk of infectious disease exposure, altered microbiota, and food security caused by climate change. Thank you very much. That's everything from me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Yeong Hui Ma. And last but not least, we have Ibrahim Umar. Please.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the session. I am Ibrahim Umar, or you are all allowed to call me Umar. This year's meeting has been based on 3 approaches: the bioethics in research, the climate change and health. That's why I call them triangular approaches. So to borrow a space, I also use a triangular approaches in my presentation. And is it a normal? Have you got some slides? Anyway, the focus was on the settings, which are the hard-to-reach community, and also the person, the main actor, who's called Indo, a primary school teacher, and also a voluntary health worker. And the setting is a hard-to-reach community. And my methodologies are discussion with Indo, the main actor, the verbal consent to be obtained for the interviews, and also thematic analysis of the data through as they arrive. And the approaches are also 3-way approach. To lead the lead actor is being identified. The strategy was grounded in indigenous knowledge and customs, including sciences. And the collaboration was to engage with stakeholders and local authorities. So the key issues identified in the case study is the health impact of climate change in Masala, the community of focus, and the implications for health policy formulation, and ethical challenges like consent, cultural sensitivity, and privacy. The health impact are also 3. The malaria, which is environmental degradation, the nutrition issue, which is bound in food insecurity, and also the water management. The resilience done there is through the partnerships, local leaders and traditional leaders, health professionals, and experts. The solidarity was with the indigenous knowledge combined with scientists. And the outcome was to strengthen community resilience to health risk. So the addressing water scarcity as part of the climate change issues identified is the rainwater collection system introduced. A baobab tree, the scientific name Adansona digitata, will be docked, a hole will be docked inside for the rainwater collection. That is retention. And the groundwater, sorry, that is a reservation. The groundwater retention is for a brick to build at above knee level. And also, the prevention through adaptation adopted is the use of traditional early warning system for the flood, community preventive measures like drainage cleaning to avoid the collection of water, and reduce malaria incidence through localized effort. Malaria will take a lot, and which is remain pandemic. The ethical concerns in this research are: 1, the informed consent, which is crucial, and the complex risks, the unpredictable health impact from the climate change, which may not be able to give a good direction to the ethical observation and the political issues. Of course, it all goes to the voting and remaining in power, or the application for the local community. And the ethical challenges here: privacy and confidentiality of participants, the balancing between community needs with the individual autonomy, and also addressing the fair treatment of vulnerable participants. How can they be done? The ethical framework for policy adaptation include also the triple approach. The importance of community engagement in policy formulation. The community should approve what is to be done for them. Ethical governance in adaptation practices, which is mean implementation in other words. An analysis of privacy, consent, and exploitation concerns before the taking of the research. And the cultural sensitivity in the policy development include integrating regional knowledge into health policy is very important. Respecting community values, respect is virtual. And achieving a balance between science and tradition. What tradition approved and what the science brought should have a balance, so that there should be no implications. And the sustainable adaptation techniques are the focus on long-term resilience, sustainability, community-led irrigation farming for food security to produce the food before the flooding period, ensuring sustainability through local practices. What is obtainable in the local should also be given priority, and respect for individuals. The ethical issues identified in the case studies are informed consent, confidentiality, cultural sensitivity, equity, and sustainability. The informed consent is to ensure voluntary participation of vulnerable communities, and the confidentiality to safeguard participant personal information and privacy. Cultural sensitivity, respecting indigenous knowledge and values. And in conclusion and recommendation, at the end of the day, whatever is going to be to the community should build on community knowledge for adaptation to climate change, ensure ethical considerations in climate health research, and equity, justice, and sustainability in policy responses. Yeah, thank you very much for attending. And I also want to appreciate Adrian and Joanne for their resilience, and also my mentor and supervisor, Professor Tony Capone, who made me into climate change and health, and is here present. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Uma. And please, can I have a round of applause for all the Pecha Kucha speakers? Thank you. So that concludes the Pecha Kucha session.